Yeah, perfect. So Alan, if you don't mind just helping me with the slide, that'd be wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. I have the mouse here as well, so I can just move it when you want me to.
Can everyone see the screen? I do have like no more than 5 slides for you. So very short and brief. So no introduction. It's like, my name is Jolie. I'm one of the co-op coordinators here in Lassonde. I do have my prepared notes for you guys. So I'm one of 3 co-op coordinators that supports the program, like co-op or before I start, I would actually like to get to know you guys a little bit more. What do you think co-op is all about? Or why are you interested in co-op?
Go out and work, get the experience.
Go out and work and get an experience, yep.
Yeah, like on the job experience, like hands-on.
Hands-on experience. And that? Money, very important. Yep. Huh? References. Okay. In the back, okay, very good.
That was mine.
That was yours.
Yeah.
Did he steal your idea?
Yeah, so it's okay.
I feel like some of you guys were cheating on my notes because you know everything about co-op already. So maybe you don't need me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're up.
So you're right. Co-op is all about working experience, and it's also important because it's essential, almost like an essential building block for when you graduate. At the end of the day, I know this is your first year. Welcome to York and welcome to Lassonde. But think about it. The end goal is for you to graduate, and after that, it's getting a job. What is the best way to help you kickstart your career is through a co-op opportunity. So before you graduate, you have some essential skills, industrial experience before getting in. So at York, we do. I have to say that it is a very competitive program. Whether it is in co-op or after you graduate. So the same applies. So you actually get to experience what job searching is all about very, very early on, which is great. And what's so unique about co-op is that you're not job shadowing anybody. You're on the job full time, Monday to Friday for either 4 months work term, 8 months work term, 12 months work term, all the way up to 60 months work term. To be on the job, learning and making impactful experience and actually contributing to the industry that you're interested in. For co-op model, you do have the opportunity of 2 work terms, meaning that you get to test out different areas of interest. Maybe the first time you're interested in research. And then after doing it, you're like, oh, I actually don't like research. I want to do more mechanical related stuff. So having that opportunity allow you to test drive what the career is all about. At York, we have different type of co-op or work integrated learning at Lassonde. So we have the Dept degree with Shopify. We also have the capstone project, which is your 4th-year project that you have to complete before graduating. And for today's purpose, I'll talk a little bit more on co-op and internship opportunity. And we advocate for paid positions, so all the co-op and internship positions that we have are all paid for. If you would like to do a volunteer position, great. Do it at your own time. It doesn't count towards co-op. Okay, we want to make sure that our students are getting paid for the position. I think one of the students mentioned part of co-op is getting that paid position, right? We acknowledge that our employer acknowledge that you guys are students, you guys are still learning, which is wonderful. But you have the basic fundamental and basic skill sets to make a meaningful contribution. So all of those 3 programs, the Debt-free co-op internship, capstone project, they all, in a general umbrella term, is called a work integrated learning, allowing students to step away from academic study, in particular co-op. It's allowing students to step away from academic study to get some work experience. And can I have the next slide, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
We kind of talked a little bit here about what does co-op have to offer. Test driving your career, knowing what it is. And at Lassonde, co-op is optional. So you're not currently enrolled in any of the co-op program yet, which is good, because for you to learn about it, maybe it's not for you. Co-op is not for everybody. There are some criteria that students need to meet. There are some financial components attached to the program. So when you're ready to apply, for students that are interested in co-op, they can enter as early as second year. After you completed maybe second year, you can apply. For students that want to enroll in internship, we do have internship available for third year. Unfortunately, not for engineering students. How many engineering students do we have here? Okay, so you only have co-op option, okay? Just remember that. Because it gets confusing between co-op and internship. What's available, co-op, what's available. For all engineering students, always going to be co-op. For our computer science, computer engineering students, they have the option of choosing co-op or interview. They have a choice that they have to make. For digital media students, do you have any digital media students? No. Okay. Do we have any EAT students here? One. Engineer. So that also has to be one. So I just want to be very clear about, depending on your program, there are the two options for you to choose. Okay, we talked about co-op being optional. Second year is when you enter co-op, and third year for internship. And I talked about test driving your career. How do you know what you want to do without trying it? You enter university at most of you are maybe relatively young, 18, 19. I see some little bit mature student, which was always welcome, take a lot of courage to come back to study. But at age 18 and 19, how do you know what you want to study? I don't. For the longest time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Without trying it, you don't know. So use this opportunity, use this platform to know a little bit more about yourself. It's through learning and trying it. That's when you find out, this is what I wanted to do. And we often hear students say that, oh, I went to university, wasted my money, wasted my tuition, wasted my time, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, because I wasn't prepared. But through co-op experiences, you get to see what's right for you. Maybe you're not ready for the industrial position, right? You are more focused on academic. Then that way, pursue a master, right? Then you know much more about yourself. I mentioned earlier that co-op is a very competitive process. To get into the co-op, you need to meet certain eligibility requirements. I'm not going to go through detail what it is. I can provide you with a link after so you can read up about it. So you know what kind of GPA do I need, what kind of course do I need before getting into the co-op. And there's mandatory sessions. Make sure you attend the mandatory sessions. That's so you get into the co-op. Then you're competing kind of among your colleagues as well as other students that are also looking for co-op opportunities. So it is a very competitive process, but don't forget, you also have the co-op department support. We're here to provide you professional job search support to help you and guide you. Mock interview. How many of you have done a mock interview before? An interview before? One, two. Okay, good. Have you ever done a technical interview? Remember, you guys are engineering computer science students, so are you ready for that? Although I'm not anyone technical, I cannot read any of your codes, but I can guide you in terms of how to answer some of those questions. I can let you know, oh, this is what the employer you're looking for. Those are kind of the questions, the type of questions that be prepared for. At the same time, it's kind of like an exam. I cannot give you the question and you prepare for the answer, but it will help you study, help you get ready for that next step. So you always have the support for our team, for myself and my colleague. 80% of our students that are actively searching are able to find the co-op jobs. We have some leaders here that are, there's a few actually I saw that are co-op students. They will share some of their experience in terms of their job search experience and their on-the-site experience, right? So feel free to reach out to the leader. Lassonde's great in terms of having a great community. They always ask one another, oh, I'm having to write my learning. I'm sure you have done, Alan have done his learning objective. What should I be writing there? What should I be doing? Maybe how your learning are depending on you, okay? So what you take on that project is depending on you. How you execute your work term depending on you and your supervisor. So it is competitive, you earn the experience, and you earn money while you learn. You're being paid, as I mentioned. You get paid, on average, our student gets paid $22.61 on an hourly rate. But it differs depending on program to program. Once again, if you're interested in the breakdown of how much a program, if I'm in this program, in the civil program, how much we'll be making. Go on the website. All the information is out there. Just to give a sense, do you know what is the minimum wage in Ontario is? 14, 14.25, correct. So 14.25 is a minimum pay for most students, right? Or most people. Our student gets $22.61 on average. And that's on average, but I have seen some students are getting 30 at least $30, depending on the work term. There's a very few factors that plays a role. When we look at co-op, we always say that don't just look at the pay. Pay is important, okay? I know it's being mentioned earlier. It's also the experience. What do you want to get from it? Well, you want to start with a startup company versus a bigger company. What's the pros and the cons? Those are options that, yes, you have to make at the end of the day. You are an adult now. You're making those decisions. But we're always there to help you, guide you, especially when you have competing offers. You guys are wonderful, talented students. And if you have that career need that career support, that's what we're really here for. Okay? And one thing that's very important that on my side I talk about go global or stay local. So you do have a lot of opportunity, whether you want to choose to stay in Toronto or stay in Canada for your co-op. But you don't have to. We also have a lot of Silicon Valley tech tour trip is actually happening this week. A lot of our students virtually, this year we're having it virtually, but in the past, we actually have a handful of students that will travel to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley, with our one or two co-op staff to actually go and meet employers. So you don't have to stay in Toronto. You can go to the States. You can go. We also have partnership with University of Twente in Netherlands. If you want to go over there, everything is paid for, accommodation, flights, as well as your housing. So whatever you make is yours to keep. So you don't have to worry about like living expenses during the time that you are on co-op or over there. Those are the type of partnerships that we have at co-op. So that pretty much, if I didn't sell co-op enough and tell you enough about what we do, do let me know. Can I have the next slide,
Yep.
please? Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry. Next slide. I'm going to skip that one.
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, sorry. Okay. It was missing one slide. One slide that I want to show is actually a top employer. Some of the employers that are still hiring. I know COVID have changed our life in many, many different ways. Before our Okay. Then, okay. I know I talked a lot already. I will give you some links. So we do have a drop-in starting September that you student can always come in and talk to us. It's drop-in. So if you have general question, feel free to let us know. The link is available. You can also provide. We also provide a link in terms of finding out what is the requirement. What does it mean to be in co-op? Okay. Before I end off, I would like to know: Do you have any questions for me that you would like me to answer? Yes. Very good question. So let's assume that you want to have your first work term. So we always ask, when would you like to start your work term? Okay, when would you like to start? If you're looking to start summer of your second year, right? You have completed second year and you're looking for that summer work term, apply 4 months in advance, at least 4 months in advance. The reason for that is we don't. So let's assume that you want to have a summer position starting in May. We don't have a position say, hey John Doe, starting May, you're going to work in IBM. We're going to serve it to you on a silver platter. It doesn't work that way. I mentioned it's a competitive process, so you have to apply way in advance, one term in advance, to start doing the job search support, getting the mock interview, right? So apply early, go onto our website to know the calendar. So going to your question is, when should I apply? More like if you're looking for summer position, apply October, November. After first year, there's a particular courses that you have to take. So instead of when should I apply, look at how many courses you have completed. Do you have the prerequisite courses that we're looking for? So go to the website to learn about, did I meet the requirement for a do a self-assessment? Are you eligible yet? Yes.
That continues into my question. So if we're looking for summer terms or summer positions after a second year, can we apply even if we don't have the required 60 credits you need to apply for co-op? Like if we're finishing the 60 credits by the end of the winter term, we can still apply.
Yes. So we look at the time that you were in. So for example, yes, you enroll in some winter courses. You're looking for a summer position, right? I'll take the enrollment in good faith that I want you to pass. Okay. But like as long as I see that you enroll for at least 60 credit, then yes, then you're during the time of application when we assess you, you enroll and have the prerequisite courses, the number of courses that we're looking for, apply. And when you apply, it doesn't hurt to apply. You just submit an application that takes about 2 minutes, and we don't take anything from you. It's free. So even if you apply and get a rejection, that's okay. At least you've gone through the process and know about it. You have a follow-up question?
Yeah, well, it's a separate question.
Okay.
But it had to do with what you mentioned earlier about the co-op terms. You said there's 4 month, 8 month, 12 month, and I think 16 month. Can we pick and choose how we want to combine those? Is it more based on what the employers can speak to them after we apply about that?
Yes. Great question. So what happened is, thank you. What happened is at our posting, we will indicate how long the duration is. So for example, if I'm an employer, I'll give you some example. Sanofi tend to prefer longer duration just because the learning curve is quite
Steep.
steep, quite large. It takes not just the 4 months, right?
Sure.
Because of that, they take so much time to train. So they do want our students to stay a little bit longer. We do have a lot of mainly banks that do prefer the 4 months, the shorter duration. So if you know that you want a shorter duration, look for those. So it does indicate. So if you say that I want a 4 month, but this position asks for 16 months, don't apply because it's not something that you want to do. Yes, a question. Yeah. So for your offer, that means you're doing a great job. They want to keep you longer. That's a good sign. So we always welcome that. Let us know, saying that currently I'm working with IBM and I'm doing such an amazing job. They extend my contract for another 4 months. Let us know. We'll change your co-op sequence accordingly to allow you to work. So we'll check a few things, but that's administrative things. Okay.
Would it be good to apply for
Pardon me?
Where do we go to apply to co-op? Like, how do we apply?
How
Yeah.
are they also going to find out the information, I guess, when they're getting into their second year?
When they're getting into second year. So what happened is we send weekly community. I think Lassonde says weekly communications. I don't know if you get it yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Eventually, very soon. We send out weekly communication through our communication department. So when the time comes to application, we'll send out to all Lassonde students. Hey, if you're interested in co-op, you want to apply, please do the following. There's mandatory sessions you have to apply, you have to attend, and then you submit an application within the application window. Okay? Yes?
What are the mandatory sessions about?
What is a mandatory session about? So today I give you a very crash course about what info session is about. Normally my info session is about an hour long. So I'll go in more detail about what does it mean to be in co-op. There's a fee, as I mentioned, attached to it. Is that something you want to do? I'll talk about international student, domestic student. What's the difference? How do they apply? What is the things that they need to do before they apply?
We also have some questions from the chat. If you can, there's one on the screen. Does co-op have any credits? Maybe you can just answer. It says co-op have any credits?
Does co-op have any credit? So co-op courses, we have for student going on the first term, there are two courses that they have to take. Is co-op 20, if you want to remember this and read it up later, it's co-op 2100 and co-op 2109. One is a professional development course, which is a 2-credit course, okay? The other one is a work term course, which is a 0-credit course, which is pass or fail.
And yes or no, should we have minimum 60 credits for co-op? Someone asked in chat.
Should you have a minimum 60 credit? Yes, you do need to have that minimum 60 at the time of application. So even enrollment, as we mentioned earlier, as long as you enroll in good faith that you'll pass the course, then you'll most likely get into the program, meeting all other requirements too.
And one more question before back to the audience. How do classes work when we're in co-op?
When you're in co-op, you're not required to take any courses. Aside from the co-op courses I already mentioned, you're fully immersed into that industrial learning. Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you're at work. If you choose not to take any courses, that's completely up to you. Some students want to continue taking courses. You can take a maximum of 3-credit course outside of your normal hours. That means weekend courses, weeknight courses after 5 o'clock. Those are great. Online courses is an option as well.
Great.
Yes, in the back.
What's the minimum overall grade required?
Overall grade requirement. So for co-op is a 5.0 GPA. For internship is a 6.0. Competitive GPA? I always say this. To get into co-op, everybody is equal. As long as you meet that GPA requirement, that's good for us. As an academics standpoint, it's good for the university. It gets competitive when it comes to when you're applying for the job, right? Some employer will look at your grades. Some employers don't even ask for your grade because they know to get into the co-op program, you already have the minimum that we have set out. Not all, I have to say from experience, is that student with good GPA does not always make you a good employee, right? So keep that in mind. Some employer focus on GPA, but not all. Yes.
The Silicon Valley trip you mentioned, is that something you're invited into? Do you apply for it? Is it like it's probably GPA requirements to it? How would that work?
Yeah, so for those that are interested in the Silicon Valley trip, it's normally for your second work term, for your second work period. You still have to apply for it, even if you're in the co-op program. You still have to apply. We normally take about 7 to, this term, because we're doing a virtual, we can take a bigger group. Normally we cap it at about 10, just because it will fit in the minivan. Everybody can sit in, we travel together. And that sounds really funny. For those that know Bob, we call it the Bobmobile, who drive around Silicon Valley with his van. Anyway, 16, so this year we have 14 students that joined the Silicon Valley trip. You still have to apply. GPA is one thing, but it's not everything. So when we look at application, we look at, does the student have leadership skills? Does the student have, are they involved in the community? What kind of work term do they have? We also know what our employers are looking for. So for example, there's a lot of back-end, front-end, full stack kind of position. Do you have that kind of skill sets? Okay, so we also look at what did you do on your first term. Okay, so there's a criteria that we're looking for. Yes.
Like, how would they know that we have leadership skills or any of that stuff? Is it they submit like a resume or an interview or something?
You have to submit your resume and you have to write almost a convincing one pager to say why should you be selected to the Silicon Valley.
And that's like part of the application process.
Part of the application process, and myself and my colleague will review it, and then we'll make a decision. Very similar. We'll grade it. Okay, we only have spot for. In the past, it's like a little bit smaller number. This time around, we have about 15 spots. Only 14 candidates made it. So if we don't have the right candidate, we'd rather take a smaller group of students. Okay, and those students get to really meet and have one-on-one interactions with the employer. Some of the Silicon Valley employers are Tesla, Bitcoin.
Coinbase. That's where I worked.
Huh? Where?
Coinbase.
Coinbase. Okay. I forgot. Avenue Code, Twitter, Google. Do you remember any other ones?
Uber. Yeah. Roblox.
Yeah.
They're a very big employer, one of the biggest tech companies.
Twitter. So once again, like there's just so many. Sometimes I forget. I just went on the virtual trip with the student yesterday, and I just remember the ones I attended. And Apple. Did I mention Apple?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So you really get to meet the not only the HR person, the hiring manager, learn about the culture, how to current intern student. And then you're gonna have more opportunity to talk to Alan along with other leaders that have also done a co-op before or in job searching. Did that answer your question?
So, people who go on this trip, do they actually get jobs? How many of them actually get jobs?
It depends on the student.
No, I'm saying usually every year. You go on the trip, you take 10, 15 people, do they end up actually working in Silicon Valley or do they all?
It's not guaranteed. I have to say it's not guaranteed. Okay, but going to the trip does not guarantee that you get hired. But will it increase your chances? Of course, right? Imagine that when an HR person have an opportunity to know you, they'll most likely screen your resume out. Oh, I remember this person. I had a talk with this student. This student impressed me through the technical skills because some of our employer asked technical questions on the spot during the Silicon Valley trip. If you're able to impress, most likely. But does it guarantee? No. Does all 14 of our students will get a position in Silicon Valley? No. Do we have some students that go on Silicon Valley? Of course, we have a prime example right here. Yes.
What does the trip consist of?
What does the trip consist of?
Yeah,
Like, what's the agenda like?
Yeah.
So we do some prep work. We have, it's really to go and do a 30-second elevator pitch with the employer. Each student gets to do that. So employer gets to know you. They will talk about themselves and talk about the hiring process. They'll give tips about technical interviews. I know Tesla did more on-the-spot interview as well. And they'll tell you about guiding students, saying that if you are interested, here are some of the links. Here are some of the job postings. What are we looking for that will make you a good candidate? So they will tell you the insights about applying for that position. At the back.
When is this?
When is it? It's actually happening this week.
Is it every year?
Yep. So normally, like I said, we'll travel together, but this time it's happening virtually. Yes.
I was a little late, so can you go over what the requirements?
I have a video. Maybe Alan can share it.
We'll share it online later, with all the details.
With all the details. No other question? Oh, sorry.
You mentioned that international.
Mhm.
So I know that because of COVID, it's probably going to happen this year. So how is the next year looking like?
I cannot predict the future. I cannot tell you that. So currently, I can tell you what's happening right now is that we have two students that is they got an internship for University of Twente in Netherlands. So they're doing currently it's an AMS position. So for the fall term, those two students will be staying remotely, having that opportunity in January, they already submit the application to go through the visa process to hopefully travel in January. But what does the future hold in terms of how can our student have the internship abroad? Like, I cannot answer that question. So we'll follow the protocol for the government as well as what the university is saying. Okay, yes.
So how does co-op differ from internship, and why does one require a higher GPA than the other?
So co-op and internship are very different streams. So in the outside world, in the industrial world, they're used interchangeably. They are referred to as work integrated learning. They're very similar in the eyes of an employer. As an academic standpoint, it's very different because internship have one term, okay, where a student go out to work. They enter in the third year, they work, come back and graduate, come back to study and then graduate, right? One term that could be 4 months, 8 months, 12 months, up to 16 months. Whereas a co-op is a very, very, very specific model, which is across all Canada, is work study sequence. So no matter which university you end up going, if you look at co-op university, work study sequences, you enter study until second year, you go out to work for your first work term, come back to study, okay? Go out for your second work term, come back to study, and then graduate. So it's a very particular model. So a simple answer between co-op and internship is, how long do you want your work term to be?
Internship is a long sprint of 12 years in and out.
So co-op also allows, as I mentioned, that you get to test drive. What if the first time you did research, the second time you want to do more industrial, right? So that will allow that opportunity. Why is the requirement different? That is just set out by the faculty, co-op faculty members. So I just follow the rules. I don't know why the GPA requirements are slightly different. Hopefully that answers your question. And the info session will go in details about the difference between the two, the duration. Today I don't have a lot of time. I only have a quick.
You're good to head out whenever.
15, okay.
It's 10 o'clock on the dot.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll give you kind of in a nutshell. That's what the two streams is all about. Do attend an info session to learn a little bit more, because I'll talk for an hour about it. Okay. Yes. When's the info session? The one for winter 2022. I know I'm already thinking winter 2022. It's beautiful summer outside. That one already passed in August. So we did that in August. So the next one will be, I want to say October/November. I don't have the exact date in my head, for summer 2022. Okay, you may be a little too early to join co-op, but you can attend to learn about the info session. It doesn't stop you from learning and being prepared in advance. And if you attend the session, let's say summer 2022, in October for summer 2022, you know you're not ready yet. That's okay. That attendance is valid for 1 year, for 12 months. Okay, so you know you're not ready, maybe in one more semester, you'll be ready. You don't have to re-attend the sessions again. How you attend it right now is virtually. You attend virtually.
You generally have to register, though, online to attend through Lassonde Co-op website.
So for co-op, does it matter if you have a Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Arts?
So this QR code isn't working, so do I scan it? Do you want to give
Not
it to
really, it's what program you're
It
in.
says QR code.
No, like his actual thing, like won't scan.
To try getting it
Yeah.
in a good light.
Sometimes employer would just say computer science degree. Student need to enroll in civil engineering, right? There's a targeted, some positions are targeted for certain students, so they want to look for mechanical student. As long as you say, oh, computer science, it doesn't matter what stream you end up following. Any other questions? No? Oh, okay. Last one. For co-op, to get a co-op designation upon graduation, you can 12 to 20 months. Okay, if you completed 12 to 30 month work term, you have a co-op designation. So I guess the simple answer is you can go up to 20 months for your co-op opportunity. In total, in the 2 terms. Remember? You work and you come back to study and you work again for your second term, right? So for that total, could be up to 20 months. Okay, thank you so much for listening to me and joining me this morning. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed and welcome to work, and feel free to drop by virtually to our drop-ins. I hope to see you all soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you also pass back that microphone?
Oh, for sure.
Cool. So we're going to start our student panel portion now. I'm going to flip over the camera to us so the people online can see us. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. I know y'all have so many things to do right now. Ooh, someone get this wire. Oh, I appreciate it. No worries. All right. Have a good time today at the Silicon Valley trip. I'll see you there. I have to be on the panel for the trip. Alrighty. We'll flip this camera around to us so the people online can ask us some questions. So I have a list of questions. I'm going to throw this up. Stop the screen share. Awesome. Cool. I'm the only person here. Let me just do this. So you folks get all the information you need. You have other questions about the local program, getting into it. I think pretty straightforward, shouldn't be too tough. Cool. I'm just pulling up my list of questions. So, as you folks know, my name's Alan. You can use he, him pronouns. Going to my 5th year and hopefully final is software engineering. I've done 2 work terms, and I can thank Lassonde for my first work term, which I got through the portal. The second one, which I just finished up, I got through my own applications. We'll speak a bit about that, but I'm going to pass it off to Sudhanshu to introduce himself and Nicole.
I'm Sudhanshu. I'm going my 3rd year. Currently going down 1 co-op so far. I'm currently applying for my 2nd as well. Yeah, that's where I am. If you have any questions, just let us know.
Yeah, so we'll start with some questions. I have some ones written down, but if there are things on your mind, you gotta shoot. That's correct.
You mean on your own? You just apply to different positions through like Indeed or?
Literally, like I'm sure Sudhanshu is doing the same thing, but yeah, going to like Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, even Hacker News. If any of you folks know that, they post like who's hiring. So just really like I would say I've even cold called companies and gotten interviews at like really cool places just by speaking to them. And so even though you can have the portal, you are competing against everyone at Lassonde. Also, you have to send like your transcript on a lot of the applications. My grades are not the best, so when I apply externally, they don't really care about what your grades are and they don't see them, so they have less reason to just reject me. So I got my job at Coinbase, which is another tech company. If you folks know it, it's a cryptocurrency exchange and very large. I've been working this summer with 3 other Lassonde students who did it through co-op, but we got it through applications like me, and one of them got the job last year from the Silicon Valley Tech Tour, and then he did a return offer for co-op this year. Do you want to talk about your experience applying like externally, maybe?
I mean, personally, I haven't applied externally that much. Just starting to get into it now in my 2nd co-op. For the first co-op, I applied for the portal. The portal has a lot of jobs actually, and companies kind of like post and like you can filter by what jobs you want, when the due date is, stuff like that. You just apply online. What I'm gonna say though is like a good portion of the time, you have to apply to the portal and the company website.
Mm-hmm.
And companies usually just check their website in the end. The portal is more for like Lassonde to know you're applying to the job. So a lot of the times, companies don't actually hire through the portal. They just hire from their own site, from their own database. So you look the same as if you applied externally as well.
You want to take other questions?
Yeah.
Cool.
I got a question about like at your first work term, you like really happy with that job, but you had to come back and study. Can you do that for the second work term? The same job?
Yeah. So a lot of companies do take return offers, especially if you are like a really decent employee. So like, I know from my company, so I actually got my co-op 8 months at CIBC. So at the end, they actually like note down like how you were as a co-op student because companies like to keep track of that, and they actually have like your manager recommends, like if you be hired back or whatever in future terms or after you graduate as well at the very end of your work term. So in a lot of cases as well, people tend to like actually go back to their co-op because it's just easier. You already have the connections, you already know your manager, you can really just get into the system and get going. So return offers are actually very likely.
Cool. We'll take one more question, and then we're gonna go through some questions I have, and then we'll go back to audience questions. So yeah, Death Row Records. Let's go.
So if you apply off of a website like Indeed, will Lassonde still count it as a co-op?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, yeah, Lassonde will totally accept jobs, and they encourage you to also like use other applications. So when you apply through the Lassonde portal, it's because Lassonde has like a partnership with them, and a lot of the time they actually have contracts that agree they'll hire a certain number of students. So for a lot of companies that might be smaller that can't, go to all these different universities and just guarantee, from different universities they'll hire it. If you get the job offer, you just send the offer letter to Co-op and they'll process it for you. But if you do the job outside of Co-op, you can still do that, but it won't be a part of the Co-op program, which is definitely beneficial if you want to have Co-op on your degree and you want to continue having access to the portal and all that jazz. But it's definitely all kosher to apply on your own and get that passed over to Co-op. So just to move on to some of our questions we have, I want to talk about the jobs that we've done, and maybe you can also have Sananchu talk about his job at CIBC, what he did there, and also share what the most recent project you worked on is.
Okay, so my job at CIBC was, at least I like to describe it, a low-tech, high-impact role. So I was a project coordinator. I didn't actually get to code in my position as computer engineer. I had a very high impact in terms of like upgrading CIBC systems to like newer technology because they need new technology, honestly. So that was the gist of my role. In terms of the most recent project was not actually at the company itself, but probably at a hackathon. So last hackathon I went to was Hackathon 2020++, if anyone knows about it. It was an online hackathon held in January by the University of Waterloo. And me and my friends, we made like a little game in C++. We actually won the Ubisoft prize, which was kind of nice. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer those as well. Like hackathons, more like extracurricular stuff like that as well.
I'll answer it after the session. Cool. So I have had 2 jobs now through my co-op experience. The first, which I got through the portal, was at a manufacturing company in Brampton. Brampton, the greatest place on earth, at AFA Systems Manufacturing. So they hire a good amount of Lassonde students now, like at least like once every term. And that was actually a fall co-op, meaning I started in September, finished in December, rather than working over the summer. And I kind of did general intern stuff. Being in software, I did a lot of software projects, updating some systems, creating new things for like the company. But as well, I think for your first co-op, you might be doing more co-op-y things, like intern work. Just like handling any sheets or like emails that need to go out sometimes, which is just the nature of things. But the more of a specific like tech role you work, the less I would say you do that. So my most recent work term, which was from May 17th to August 6th, so a 12-week internship I had at Coinbase. That was a software engineer working on back-end systems. And to talk a little bit about what I worked on, there's a financial hub team managing a lot of the workings of how the system is, and I've been working on a new product, and I was actually coding one of the services and a lot of the endpoints. If you're in software, I'm sure you'll hear this more, for our new platform that is going to be launching, and so that was really exciting to work on it. I got to work in Go, which is a programming language I really enjoy, and as well I got to work with lots of cool services and I would say technologies that are pretty cutting edge and in these high scale like businesses and platforms. So it was a really great experience. So we'll go back to the audience if you folks have questions, and shoot.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a bit about specifically for like software jobs about the portfolio and how would you recommend. First part of the question, would you recommend more smaller projects or working on like one larger project that's like a fully fledged website that goes like front end, back end, all that stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a portfolio, for example, so like alankaplan.com, and I put a lot of my projects there. I also have a GitHub. In terms of what projects are on that portfolio, I would say 80% of them, if not more, are projects from hackathons. And I'm sure Sinanju can relate. We both went to Hack the North, which is a really big hackathon run out of the University of Waterloo, or now just in Waterloo in general. And I think they've expanded their team applications beyond that. But when you're in a hackathon, be it 24, 48 hours, the pressure on you to create a project and to like get it kind of wrapped up into a finished product that you can present by the end is really helpful. So if you do like literally, I really recommend this, especially in first year, because the more hackathons you do earlier, the better you're going to get earlier. If you do 3, 4 hackathons a year, even more 6, those are all projects that you can pick and choose from to put on your resume, to put on your portfolio. So even if the projects aren't like all the best, you'll have a team that you can present. They'll all be not just useful as technical demos, but as learning experiences you can talk about. But I would say those are definitely like the types of projects that are okay to show. Personal experience stuff is definitely good too. Bigger projects, I'd say you might work on things in coursework. If any of you are in software engineering or in CS software development stream, in ECS 2311, the second year software development project, you'll be doing it before you do co-op, and that is a 4-month project essentially that you'll be able to put up. But as well, in other courses you'll have small projects you can talk about as well. So that's a bit I would say about projects too, to make anything happen.
Sure. All I'm gonna say is I've heard this argument way too many times, like from my friends in my year as well. It's like they're too scared to go to like these hackathons and events because they think they're just gonna lose or get demolished by people at other universities or people who are like higher years. And all I'm gonna say is that like probably, realistically, yes, but I've learned more in like a weekend hackathon than I did in 1 month of school, usually. And also, you get a project to put on, and you just get so much more like networking experience and just experience like putting yourself out there. When I got my first co-op, what I'm going to say is I was interviewing with someone who wasn't very tech savvy generally. So she couldn't understand like what was on my resume in terms of like skills specifically, but she did. The moment I got my job, I knew this because I heard it like on the other side of the phone because it was during COVID. Was when she asked me how much of your resume is schoolwork, and I was able to tell her practically none of it, and that's kind of like the moment where it clipped and where I got my first co-op.
Mm-hmm. And just seeing a question, I think that's following up coming from our YouTube chat. How do you display a hackathon project where not all work is yours? Well, there's a few things you can do. One thing they always try and get at hackathons is for folks to put what work you did specifically, and that's a good thing to write. I generally got a pretty big role, so I make sure cover. I did the DevOps, I did the backend, I set up the databases, that sort of thing. But I think it's also known that when you're in a hackathon, not all the work is going to be yours. So there's nothing too stressed about that. They're going to think one person made like a 4-person project. But at the same time, it's just good to highlight what you did, how you worked on the team. And maybe just to share something a bit different before we move into the next question is a lot of what these employers are looking for, and this is true not just in your behavioral interviews where they're just going to be talking to you, but also maybe technical interviews for no matter what program you're in, and they're asking you technical questions. They don't just want to know exactly what your technical skill is. They want to know what your team skills are in respect to working on technical projects. So when you're like faced with some sort of technical project, being designing, an HVAC system, coding, something, really whatever it is, they want to know what your approach is going to be, how you're going to work with people, how you can work in a collaborative environment. Past work experience saying, I've used agile project management before to solve like a problem, even though it's not a coding thing, it was a big part of doing it. And when you're working in a business, those are important things to highlight when talking about the technical work you've done. Cool. Yeah, keep going.
I was just curious, like co-op terms, how much of the interview process was technical, like coding interviews, like neat code questions, like an algorithm?
Yeah. So how much of the quiz though basically technically getting jobs? I'd say the more high tech and software you want to work, the more you're going to start getting those questions. So my first job in a manufacturing company, I didn't really get any technical questions beyond showcasing some things I did in the past. For other jobs, which I've gotten offers for software jobs, bunch of offers where I never had to really answer any like leak code, like algorithmic questions. They were just asking me different questions, maybe things about DevOps or things about, how some operating systems work or some basic commands, that sort of thing, or just concepts about containers, ergo Docker, or, scaling like orchestration, which is this platform Kubernetes. So we're getting some abstract questions there. But I also have gotten a fair amount of technical things. And so there's two types of technical questions you'll be asked in the software realm. The first is online assessments, where a recruiter will look at your resume for like 10, 15 seconds, be like, all right, and they'll send you an online assessment, which is basically like leak code questions that they're going to basically get you to do. And every company has their own policy. I know at Coinbase, there's 2 leak code medium questions essentially just through this platform, HackerRank, and you needed to at least solve 75% of the test cases to move on to the behavioral interview. And then after behavioral, a lot of like higher tech companies, what they do, there's 2 reasons they do this, but you have a one-on-one with an engineer for an hour essentially. You're given a problem to solve, and you work through it. But like I said, a lot of what they're looking for isn't how quick you get to an algorithmic solution. They want to see how you think of it, how you test it, how you communicate about it, how you check it's working and walk through in your head. And I'd say the second aspect to that is also a lot of the time you might not be interviewing with like your manager, or at least not until a very late stage, like the last interview. And so you're either going to be interviewing with HR, or alternatively, they might give you an engineered interview. But the reason they're doing this is because they want to train their engineers to interview, especially interviewing co-ops, like a low stakes interview for them. So sometimes the people interviewing you aren't always the managers, but people who the managers are assigning to do the interview so they can get the experience. Cool. Yeah, Sanancho has more, but we'll go to you for a second.
I think there's a question in the back. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people coming, let's say, whatever, they're fairly new to coding or have been coding for about a year or 2 only. So when do you say a person ready to participate in this hackathon? Like what level of programming do they need?
For hackathons?
Yeah.
Yeah, just repeat the question so people online can hear too.
The question was for people who are like generally new to coding. Wait, when are you doing hackathons? Was it or?
I'm saying what level of programming?
When can you start doing?
When can you start?
How fluent should you be in coding?
You don't have to be that fluent. Let's be fair. Because hackathons are very generally open-ended projects. Half your marks are going to come from your idea.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that fluent in coding. Generally, though, there are mentors at hackathons. They're literally like I've had mentors literally take my computer and do code for me at some point. They're very helpful, and they're just like they'll guide you through. If you're generally new, there's company-specific mentors too. Like companies will send their mentors, their engineers over, and their engineers will like explain to you how their API or program works, and then help you code it through. What I'm going to say as well, there are actually beginner-level hackathons as well. So I know at least Waterloo runs one in January-ish. Applications should open maybe late November.
It's called Starter Hacks.
Yeah. And there's a few more here and there if you really want to look for them. So if you're not comfortable, I guess, like going to giant hackathons or competing with large people, go to something. Find something that you feel is more your skill, because there's always going to be something out there, and just apply yourself.
Yeah, and I just want to say the actual best time for you to go to a hackathon is when you don't know anything, because that's when you're going to learn. And I do want to say things for maybe people who aren't in maybe software or CS is that there are prizes for non-pure code solutions. I've seen some really cool projects involving physical things. It's a chance to team up with people. I've seen people literally machine things out during the hackathon. People are working on microcontrollers to make a bigger system. And so it's super cool experience that you can take, and you can say, not only did I make a project, in a weekend at a hackathon, but, it was a physical device, be it for health or, just I've seen like games. I've seen, things that like move on sewer grates, like, to close them so things don't fall through with like a sensor. So really, like, there's anything there, and you'll have a team to work with. There's 2 questions over here. When you want to ask, figure out between yourself.
When you were explaining co-op, you used a lot of jargon. If we didn't understand some of the jargon, should we be worried?
You definitely shouldn't be worried. But what I'd like to know is which things didn't you know, so I can explain it, so I can also know it.
When you're talking about programming, you were talking about containers, DevOps. I'm pretty sure I know what DevOps stands for, but you could please clarify.
Yeah, so so there's a lot about the software world that you won't learn in university, and I think this is something everyone was going to learn very quickly. Is that university, especially computer science, is very focused on fundamental math-related topics in the earlier years because I do think maybe it's worth it to talk about like the advanced topics a bit earlier, but you shouldn't be worried that you don't know what containers are. Or like what DevOps is, you will learn it later if you take the courses that teach them. But just to quickly go over it, a lot of software today, we need to run lots of different versions of it, right? You can't like run one Spotify for everyone in the world, right? So they have lots of different Spotify servers, and the easiest way to run it is to take their app and kind of put it into a container that can run everywhere. That's the idea. And DevOps, or development operations, is the idea of setting up systems so when I have code, it automatically creates the container, puts it on the server for me, and that sort of thing. So a lot of what you'll do in the software world isn't just creating the code. There are lots of jobs about the infrastructure, especially cloud infrastructure. 1/3 of software engineers are going into like cloud infrastructure now, which is just setting up how the software is going to run.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask, is there like any hackathons that your university hosts?
Absolutely. Are there any hackathons at York University? There's actually multiple hackathons that we have. I would say there's not just only hackathons, we also have competitions that are not a hackathon kind of, but they are kind of hackathons. I would say the first one to look out for is York Hacks. That's going to be run by the Google Student Developer Club, and that is a hackathon that is going to be running for all York students and non-York students to join. I would definitely recommend checking that out. As well, for female and non-binary identifying people, we have LHACS, which is a really large hackathon, maybe even the largest of its kind, at least in Canada or North America. And that also runs during the year for my folks who have such identification who want to participate in that. Beyond that, we also have two things, the York Engineering Competition and Lassonde Games. Both are for generally Lassonde students. In the York Engineering Competition, there's actually tons of categories, junior design, senior design, consulting, re-engineering, debate, but one of them is programming. And the difference between this and a hackathon is you're actually given a problem to solve rather than choosing anything you want to make. You do get kind of open-ended to make your own solution, but they're given a specific prompt and something to solve for. And the same for Lassonde Games, and Lassonde Games has 3 different categories. So I'd really recommend, honestly, I go sometimes, even this past year, twice a month to hackathons, competitions. It makes a ton of a difference, not just in your technical ability, and I definitely say to people in mechanical civil engineering, York Engineering Competition, you should attend every year, but for everyone, attend as much as you can, especially in your first few years, because it will show dividends in the later years that you got the experience early. Yeah, shoot.
It's not really a question. I was just going to mention for like mech and civ eng and all of that stuff, there are design competitions as well that they can attend that are similar to hackathons, but that are for them specifically.
Yeah, and as well, I'd also suggest to look at going to the technical teams that we have. Even behind us in the garages, we have the F1 team, the human powered vehicle, like Lassonde Motorsports, rover team, and these teams don't need all sorts of people. They need mechanical and civil engineers to do CAD, to do physical analysis. They need software, computer, CS, electrical to do all sorts of mechatronic systems, be it pure software, working with microcontrollers, and like I said, actually about bigger projects, or these are the bigger projects that you work with a team. Like when you're working on the rover team, there's like subgroups you're on, and our rover is crazy. We take it like to the States, and we competed. I think maybe it was like 5 years ago, and we came first in a few categories. Beating a lot of schools rovers in them, like MIT, Harvard, and stuff. So definitely look to joining these teams, and also start new teams if you want. The school is growing. We have new students, so we'll need new ones. The Hyperloop team is one that people have been talking about. Autonomous car, team is another one people have been talking about. And that's why we have the machine shop behind us and all the garages. Opening next week is the machine shop again. Go get machine shop certified, and you can just go work on your own projects. Are there? Oh yeah, question in the back. What's it? Can someone run this microphone? Yeah, can you just run the microphone? Oh, is PEng required? No, PEng isn't really required for anything. And even you'll actually find that software engineers, a lot of time they have CS or they never even went to university. So it's not really enforced in the title much anymore, especially in Ontario, in Canada. But you do have if you're signing off on things, you do need to have a PN. I think that's a very important thing. But the work experience you do get in co-op, one of the reasons we start after second year for engineers, which is who the co-op kind of like started for, because their internship for CS at first, is that you can count 1 year of co-op experience towards your PN through your university experience. At co-op, but you can only do that starting after your second year. So it's the same rule with U of T. You can only do your PEY after second year, because otherwise it doesn't count towards your PN. But you do get 1 year to count towards it. But you do not need your PN. But once you start working, even in software, you can put down 4 years and get it. If you're in CS and want your PN, the only difference is you have to just write up exams like to make up for the physics courses. You might have learned the content, it just wasn't through the accredited program like altogether. So you can still write those exams, get 4 years of experience, do the ethics exam, and be a PN. You don't have to go to engineering to become licensed. Only if you want to skip the exams. There was a couple questions here.
I was wondering if you've ever attended any competitive programming meeting for certain problems.
Yeah, so we have team that like trains for like ICPC, I think, like the International Computing Programming Competition, like through ACM, and like actually Super Cash Dada, who spoke yesterday, has been the person to run that team for a number of years. For competitive programming, as well as CS Hub kind of trains people for it. So yeah, over the past few years, we've been sending people as well for competitive programming. If you're really into algorithms, really love solving challenges, there's that. There's also, if you're into computer security, there's like capture the flag competitions and stuff that exist out there. And you get a chance to compete against other school teams essentially, based on different challenges to enter their computers. So definitely that's also a good experience if you're in software CS and you want to do it. But also, I'll be honest with you, I know a lot of people in mechanical and civil geomatics space who end up going into software after graduation. It's a very normal thing, and you'll find a lot of the skills are transferable because engineering is, a way of thinking. It's not, just what you study. Do you want to take the next question?
Yeah, perfect.
Just curious, like at the hackathons, right? Do you make whatever you want, or is it like?
So how they generally work, you can think of it like a pool of challenges. So each sponsor kind of comes up with like their own challenge and also come with their own prize. So you make one project that can incorporate as many or as little as these challenges as you want, and incorporate a challenge in your project qualifies you for their prize. So if you incorporate like 2 or 3 companies' challenges into your project,
your course review in 30 minutes.
You can win either none or like all of the prizes, but you can't take a prize of a challenge you didn't actually incorporate into your project. But generally, their restriction is open-ended, so these challenges are normally like Amazon might come, they're like, hey, use AWS, or Firebase will do the same thing. And we see blockchain companies Ubisoft came, I have to note, they give us like a little game engine. They said, we want to see this game in C++.
With Janelle and
Doesn't matter what
everyone's ready for it.
So they're generally like, you can do what you want to do. In hackathons, there's just like some, I guess, guiding light with these challenges.
Okay, cool. Okay, we're gonna finish this up soon. All right, cool. We got another 10 minutes. We're actually gonna run overtime for you folks. That's what I'm just talking about. So are there any questions? We still have like a list of article questions, so I'm gonna just ask one of them. So what are some tips on applying for co-ops? And I'll start out answering my own question. I'd say definitely one of the biggest things I need to tell all of you folks right now is work hard on your resume, because recruiters only see it for 10, 30 seconds if you're lucky, because they have so many to go through. When I got my job at Coinbase, there were 20,000 applicants for 100 positions. So you need to be able to stand out, and it can be pretty competitive. And I didn't really have any like extraordinary experience, so I like slipped through the cracks, I feel. But when I did have a nice resume, I designed it well. If your resume is very broken up, and not easy to read, that'll be a problem. If you have more than one page, it's already gonna be really hard for them to parse. So I'd say keep things to one page. Make sure you're always iterating it, like week to week. Feel free to change it, update it, look at what other people are doing. Join the CS Careers Discord and stuff, and get resumes there. CS Hub Discord for York, and get students to review it. There will be resume review sessions for us too as well. So definitely make sure you're working very, very hard on getting a good resume. And yeah, feel free to ask for tips. You can see my resume. It's not fully up to date, but alankaplan.com/resume. People always kind of roast because it's a bit of a weird design that I use. But that's one of the tips I have for applying and for getting jobs is really focusing on that resume, because it's really when the recruiters are going to decide if they want to move forward with you, no matter what job you're applying for, no matter what field. There are lots. Magna, Tesla, GM, like all these companies, they have a lot of resumes to go through, because, if you have 100 people at Lassonde applying, you have 400 people at Waterloo applying, you have 200 people at UFT applying, and they do have only limited spots. So it's very common for you need to apply. Also, I was quickly saying, Sudanshu is about to repeat this. You should apply to hundreds of jobs. I'm not even joking. If you're applying to like less than 250 jobs for your first co-op, like you're going to put yourself in jeopardy, because it's not that you're not qualified for any jobs. I got a job at Coinbase and I was getting rejections from small companies. It's kind of a game at the end of the day, where you need to apply enough that you can get a few interviews, and those interviews will hopefully lead to things. And the last thing I'll say before I pass off to Sudanshu is, when you get an interview, first of all, it doesn't mean you got the job, but it is a great experience, especially the first interviews you'll get. Doesn't matter if you get an offer or not. Use it as experience to make your next interviews amazing, and be grateful for having those, because they will make a big impact. And the people who interview a lot will start to be able to feel more comfortable. But I think everyone at first in interviews is a bit worrisome, and you don't know what to expect, and then you realize they're just human. They're just trying to get through their workday, 5 o'clock, and then go home.
Yeah, so a lot of what just Alan said, your resume is probably like the first impression they're gonna have on you. They're gonna look at your resume for a few seconds, they're gonna like it, they're gonna toss it. Generally, I'm pretty sure recruiters go through about 100 resumes an hour, probably more. That's a minimum. So there's that. On top of that, what was I gonna say? Yeah, utilize the resume roles. So a lot of like our Discord servers for clubs and stuff like that, we have a little channel called Resume Roast or Resume Review. And so you kind of just post your resume on there, and everyone kind of like tries to pick it apart, try to like pick up the flaws in your resume. So utilize that, because that'll help you know like where you need to improve. On top of that, I'd say, I guess for interviews, prepare storylines. That's normally what I like to do. Is like prepare storylines to like, because you want to like tell a compelling story about your past experiences, how you've worked, how well you work. You want to like pique their interest in a way. So prepare like storylines. Like if they ask a question like, how would you describe your communication skills? You should like give an answer like maybe 1-2 sentences, and then go into a story. And like generally, depending on the question, you want to like just keep diving into stories to like keep them engaged into your interview, because that will like help you, I guess, build a personal connection and increase your chances of getting the job.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you'll literally get the same question. So hammer down the stories you're going to say. People are going to ask you, these are some basic ones. When's a time you had team problems? Tell me about a project you did. I don't know, what are some other ones? Why are you applying to this company? Make sure to read up. I know people who've gone into interviews, didn't look at the company, and like didn't know on the spot what to say the company does, and it's really embarrassing. So make sure like you understand, not just like what is your stories, but know the company. Even if you know who's about to talk to you, search them up on LinkedIn, Google their name, see what they do, especially if they're an engineer. Try and find out what team they're on. Don't have to be too creepy about it, but it's good to kind of have a sense of who they are, what their background is, what they studied. If you go on a recruiter's LinkedIn that's about to interview you and you see they have zero technical experience, don't start dropping like crazy technical terms on them, because it's going to go way over their head. You can still be pretty technical to a degree. They still kind of know what to talk about, but like you don't need to like say I programmed it using like these design patterns, blah blah. You can say I just use design patterns. We learned in classes, and through what I studied on my own. And so gearing what you're saying to the interviewer is going to be very important. And then when you get an engineer to speak to, you can start getting more technical, especially if you're talking about the same technical work that you've been doing at this company. So I think those are. Do you have any other tips for applying?
Not off the top of my head.
One more thing I'll say is when you start applying, make a spreadsheet, or there are even websites now to track it. Track all the applications, when you get rejected, if you never get a rejection, when you applied. It's going to be really helpful. You can even make cool charts after and see what happened. And you can save those lists to use in future years and also share them with other students. But cscareers.dept, you'll see lots of job postings there. Literally post every application. There's no reason, especially in first and second year, because you can still do a co-op after first year, just make sure that you're like very like persistent about saving all the data.
I just want to add on, in terms of the stats, at least for me, first co-op, 150-ish applications, 3 interviews, 1 job. That's all I got. So like it's really hard to like I guess get the first co-op, but once you get your first co-op, it's just rolling from there.
Yeah, I'd say definitely that first job is a barrier, and that's not like special to Lassonde or anything. Like at other schools, like you know, literally have like Waterloo is an entire system, and people who go through they have like batches of applications. People who go through hundreds of applications and then get into a continuous round because they like still didn't get a job. So like it's not wrong to apply to a lot of jobs, and you really need to do it. And it's not because it's anything to say about us being bad, you being bad. I get rejected still all the time. I get rejections now. Like I applied 8 months ago, like from Facebook and stuff. But you know, I think the idea is that you need to apply to enough that you know there will be a part of you that can get through. Any questions before we head take one of our next ones? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so you said that you put your resume on your website, but I've heard that a lot of people say that one resume for not one resume for each one.
Yeah, that's generally it's not a bad idea, and you're actually right. I have like one general resume. Like when I'm applying, if I really like a job, I'll start tailoring the resume. I'll move some things around, highlight different projects. What I used to do is I had like a doc that was like 3 pages and of like all my experience, and I'd cut it down like if I needed specific job experience on it. Because if I'm like applying to like Tesla or satellite agency or something, I'll want to include more physical like projects that I've worked on, but. If it's a software company, you know, if it's in Go, I want to say I use Go. If it's in Java, I want to say I can use Java. If it's in Python, you know, I'll talk about my projects I did in class and information networks and stuff rather than talk about, back-end software engineering stuff. So it is good to tailor your resume, and this is same for civil and mechanical, is tailor your resume. If you're applying to an automotive, try and include automotive stuff. But if you go to apply to manufacturing, try and include anything you worked with, tools and manufacturing and project management.
I know for CS and Swang in general, you need to do a lot of self-study on your own time for more job-specific skills. What would you say is the skill that the university degree, like you lack the most from the university degree that is very important in actual developer world?
I'll try and answer this while Sudhanshu kind of thinks. I see he's like, But I think like making I'd say 2 big areas that come to mind. The first is systems design, and that's thinking about how software works, like when you're not just dealing with independent components, not just independent algorithms. How do you really get things to connect? Especially like what I was mentioning with the development operations aspect, knowing, how databases and kind of servers work and, how that actually gets deployed and all that jazz is pretty important. It's really lacking. It is covered in upper year courses, but by the time you're there, you should have already had the job experience. And that's why I'm saying it's kind of backwards. They should cover it kind of earlier in first year, is because it's so important they cover systems design. And you can search up things like, you might get asked in an interview. I know people get this question, especially at companies like Facebook. Describe, how you'd make Reddit. It's very abstract, right? Or, they'll ask you something, TikTok or whatever. And, if you folks don't know right now, it's something to maybe think about in the future is literally how do you make something like Reddit? How do you make Twitter? What systems do you need? How do you get them to connect? How do you scale it? What database types do you use, right? How do you handle the account system? All this jazz, there's so much to it. And the second thing I'll say, and I think this is what Sudhanshu will say, is definitely the algorithms under pressure and leak code stuff. If you're a CS or software computer and you're trying to do these always, I know IBM hires a metric heck ton of our students, like literally 20, Amazon, there's must be like 20 plus working this summer at Amazon right now. They hire a lot of our students. You'll need to do an online assessment of like coding, which is automatic. And if you want leak code, do the top 100 interview questions. Those should be good, either some easy, medium, hard ones. And I'd say get those done, and it'll really help you along the way. And this is, I guess, more software specific stuff.
I'm just going general with problem solving because I feel like that's a skill like a lot of students don't realize they need, a lot of companies look for. At some point, like coding skills and like technical skills are teachable, and companies recognize this. When you get to higher levels, they're gonna try to figure out exactly like how well you learn and how well you can solve problems, regardless of the technical difficulty. So like, I don't want to use examples like how you can do this, how you can do that. I had a friend in like electrical. His interview question was, how would you design a toaster? So there's that. Even actually yesterday, because I'm part of the Silicon Valley tour, we were with a company called Avenue Code, and so one of the representatives showed us a website they made, which was kind of like a Google Street View of kind of like a phone. So they want to ask us like, hey, looking at this, how would you because when we tried to make this, we found there was no actual online resources similar to this. Granted, there was Google Street View, but their code isn't open source. There's no open code that would show them how to do this. So granted that like you have no resources, how would you start building this from scratch? And so that's one thing he asked us. As well as I'm gonna say is like I don't have actually anything else to add on.
Cool. We only have a few more minutes, and we're actually running overtime because y'all have so many questions. Is there anything else about co-ops, internships I can answer? I have tons of friends who worked in mechanical, civil I can answer. For them, they've worked in, consulting firms, large ones, small ones. Even I've, talked to lots of people at Hatch and stuff. So any other questions on the floor? Yeah.
But are there any other examples other than the York ones for non-programming types of water revival?
Yeah, I would say there's a bunch of them, and so one of them I think is it Hack the Valley, or like it's the one that's run in downtown Toronto. So there's like one which is non-programming.
Can I just clarify the question?
Yeah.
Are you asking about hackathons that are not run by York or Waterloo? Or are you asking for like other fields, like from Other fields, okay.
Yeah, there's a ton out there. I think the two main areas you'll have like physical design competitions, be it, bridge building, there's concrete canoe and stuff. And, I'd say a lot of times there's not like some short-term ones because a lot of time you'll need access to a machine shop and stuff. So things like our concrete toboggan team or the concrete canoe team, you work on like a concrete mixture and, frames and whatever it is. And the idea is that like you'll go to a testing day with other schools and like there's different competitions you do with them, and those are really good opportunities. Beyond that, there are like some kind of hackathons which are geared towards physical stuff. And so that would be like downtown Toronto. They have one which is geared just towards like physical like applications, but kind of the mechatronics. But one thing I'll say to my friends in civil and mechanical is physical items are really cool, but a lot of what's being done in the real world is mechatronics. And so it's important that you do use the courses you're going to be taking in your first year where you are learning their mechatronics courses to apply them to your projects. Because no one is working anymore without like software. Even my friends in transportation engineering, they have to run simulations and stuff, and they're the people who have to do the code to make them run. And they actually are like in Transportation Club, ITE. They actually run sessions to train people in civil engineering how to use these things. And like our space society and our satellite team, right? Even if there's so many jobs there, about not just building electronics, but we need to machine the actual parts for our CubeSat, and we need to create the CAD files that we're sending to our CNC. And then when we send it up, like it's a part of a competition with be it NASA or the CSA. These are really cool projects that do run every year, the competition, and you kind of work up towards it. And so that's what I'd say to focus on. There are like kind of building ones out there, but a lot of the ones for more physical applications are kind of like day of almost competitions because they want to focus on like building something good quality that you already tested. SumoBot, no one wants to like bring their project and it doesn't work because it's such short-term thing. But yeah, also hackathons for physical things. I think that's all the time we have. We need to wrap it up. I'm getting some bad stares for how long we went. If you have any other questions, please feel free to talk to us after. We'll be around the entire school year. You catch me on Discord, DM me after Frosh, and I'll definitely get to him. I get a lot of DMs these days. And pings, so just make sure to message me after. But thank you so much for coming, folks. I appreciate it greatly, and I hope you all had an amazing time. So